What is the disturbing backstory behind something that is widely considered wholesome? I met a writer named Thomas Dish when I was in college. He wrote The Brave Little Toaster. He told us Disney hired him to write a movie about lions. He wanted to do King Lear with lions. BC. The plot mirrored how lion prides operate: old, lazy but powerful male, dangerous daughters. But Disney said they wanted a young hero. So he changed it to Hamlet with lions: uncle kills father, kid runs away, ghost of dad visits and calls for revenge, etc., but with a happy ending. Timon and Pumbaa are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Wrote the script, turned it in. They said thanks but no thanks and fired him. Movie comes out, they took his idea and didn't pay him. He said Disney was notorious for doing this to creators. I read years later that he took his own life. Never think of the Lion King without thinking about him. They made so much money off his idea and he got nothing. Candyland was invented during the polio epidemic by retired school teacher Eleanor Abbott, who herself was recovering from polio. She invented the game to keep children entertained during their hospital stays who themselves were affected. The Wizard of Oz could have its own behind-the-scenes movie with the amount of shit that went down. Resusci Annie, the rubbery anatomical model we learned CPR on. The face is modeled after the death mask of an unidentified and unclaimed woman who drowned in the Seine River in the late 1800s. Toymaker Asmund S. Lertle chose to use the woman's face on the mannequin as he thought male trainees might be reluctant to kiss a man's face. The face was sculpted by the Norwegian-Danish sculptor Emma Mathiesen. Dole, the company, overthrowing the Queen of Hawaii. Valentine's Day. Saint Valentine was killed for being the priest to marry people so men could get out of war. For this he was beheaded. Went to a community event last night and, 32 years later, Macarena still fills the dance floor. A bunch of teens learned the dance for the very first time. The lyrics are, of course, in Spanish, and about the titular Macarena having a threesome with her boyfriend's friends while he's swearing his military oath. Also interesting is that the band played traditional music primarily, and this was their first pop release, in their 50s. They went back to traditional music after. The little girl who played Matilda, in the movie Matilda, mom died before the movie was released of cancer. I believe the director showed her a rough cut before she passed, but geez, that made me sad to learn as an adult edit. Thank you everyone who reminded me the director was Danny DeVito. Most fairy tales. Disney has scrubbed all the Grimm out of the Brothers Grimm. Nintendo started as a card company in the late 1800s. It probably would have gone defunct, were it not for the Yakuza. The creator of Monopoly actually intended it as a warning about the dangers of capitalism, not a celebration of it. When I was 10 or so, my sisters and I were doing a common counting rhyme to pick something, maybe who went first in a game. Eeny meeny miny mo, catch a tiger by the toe if he hollers, let him go. Eeny meeny miny mo. My dad walked by and quietly commented, when I was your age, that word wasn't tiger, but we didn't know better back then. Sherman Kelly wrote the lyrics to Dancing in the Moonlight while recovering from a violent assault carried out on him and his girlfriend by a youth gang. He envisioned an alternative reality where people just dance and be happy all the time. It was his way of dealing with the trauma. Ghislain Raza, the Star Wars kid, had his video posted onto Kaza without his permission by his schoolmates to prank him, and as a result, he was bullied at school. People made fun of him online, gave him death threats, told him to kill himself, all for pretending to be a Star Wars character, which is totally normal things kids do. He also had to go to a mental hospital and his parents sued the kids who uploaded the video. Luckily, he returned to school to finish his senior year, went to McGill University in Montreal, got a law degree and became president of his city's Heritage Society. The girl who voiced Ducky in The Land Before Time was shot to death by her father, along with her mother. Edit to include the details on the wiki page. Her name was Judith Barcy. The snake that's killed in Friday the 13th was a real snake. To make matters worse, it wasn't some wild snake they found in the woods. It was somebody's pet snake that had to watch his snake get killed. He apparently had no idea and had to be held back from punching the director. The Volkswagen Beetle was a beloved car with a quirky design. It was also commissioned by order of Adolf Hitler, designed by Ferdinand Porsche, as an affordable, practical vehicle for the German public. Its original name was the KDF wagon, which was an abbreviation of the Hitler Youth motto Kraft durch Freude, strength through joy. The guy who started the black and blue/white and gold dress debate from 2015 was charged with trying to strangle his wife. Bananas. You thought cocaine was a blood-soaked cartel and war-driven commodity? The banana trade makes cocaine look like a farmer's market. Also chocolate, coffee, tea, spices, and most tropical fruits. And meat. And seafood. Basically everything we eat, wear, and use. The history of the dunk tank. Henry Ford promoted square dancing in public schools, starting in the 1920s. Sound wholesome? He did it because he hated Jews and thought they invented jazz. He wanted to get America back to traditional, white and Christian, music and dancing. Hashtag modern / western / square / dance. Best Friends Animal Society was founded by Scientology members who formed their own cult spin-off, the Process Church. They associated with Charles Manson and David Berkowitz, with the author of Helter Skelter postulating that Manson was heavily influenced by Process. The rescue was originally a grift to keep their church going. They eventually moved to rescue full-time after realizing how incredibly lucrative, and like their church, tax-free, it could be. With $200 million in assets, $314 million in 2024 revenue, and 2 private jets, you can see just how well their grift has paid off. Edit, fixed in autocorrect. Free school lunches in America started because the military complained that during World War II that many 18-year-old men were too skinny to serve in the military. Free school lunches were added afterwards to make 18-year-old men strong enough to be drafted into the next war. The song Save the Last Dance for Me by the Drifters was written by a man who was crippled by polio and in a wheelchair watching his new wife dancing with other men at his wedding tour because he couldn't. ETA did not expect this to start such a discussion. As was mentioned below, in the song he's saying that he's the one taking her home, not them. I don't think he's angry, he's just saying that no matter who she dances with, she's his wife and will be taking her home at the end of the night. The reason cats and dogs like squeaky toys is not because the noise is funny, it's because the sound is similar to the death screams of their prey. In the animated film, All Dogs Go to Heaven, the little girl who plays Anne-Marie was murdered by her father prior to the film being released. Burt Reynolds struggled hard to finish recording his scene where Charlie says goodbye to the little girl one last time before going to heaven. It's a tear-inducing scene without knowing the backstory, but you can absolutely hear the pain in Burt Reynolds' voice. It's generally considered a very loving and touching moment, but knowing what happened makes it really hard to listen to that without getting emotional. Her father was a violent and abusive alcoholic who murdered both her and her mom and then committed suicide. She was 10 years old. Edit, oh man, I just realized more people commented about this here. I also didn't realize she voiced Ducky from The Land Before Time, too. Canonically, Chuck E. Cheese is an orphan who never knew when his birthday was, so he celebrates other people's birthdays to fill the terrible painful void of his abandonment. Scottish folds. Those cute cats with the folded ears. They have those ears because of osteochondrodysplasia. It causes joint, cartilage, and skeletal deformities. There is no treatment, only pain management. Those poor cats are in constant pain, sad face. For a while, Neopets was owned and operated by Scientologists. They wanted to add religion to it while they had it. Voice actor for classic Disney Peter Pan died alone of a drug overdose in an abandoned warehouse after years of being unable to get work in Hollywood later in life. The kids' book Love You Forever by Robert Munsch, As Long as I'm Living, My Baby You'll Be, was written in the wake of the stillbirth of the author and his wife's 2 babies.